I died, in a basement just 2 blocks away from Julian's mansion. My 5-year-old daughter, Pippa, thought I was asleep. Crying, she begged the cremation worker uncle to make me easy to carry away, and then put me in a snakeskin bag full of mud. She dragged the bag, taller than herself, through the pouring rain to the gate of the Julian Corporation. In the security footage, her face was covered in blood. She kowtowed and cried into the intercom, "Daddy, Mommy is so cold, please open the door for Mommy." At that moment, my husband, Julian, was holding his white moonlight in his arms in the top-floor office. He looked at the surveillance footage, his eyes full of disgust. Serafina, that crazy woman, is actually using her child to perform this kind of drama just to swindle money? It's disgusting. Security, throw these dirty things far away, don't dirty the company's ground. He didn't know that the snakeskin bag he despised wasn't blackmail. It was my just cremated ashes, still warm. The rain was like the Milky Way had burst, pouring down. I floated in the air, watching that small figure moving like an ant in the mud. Pippa's old cotton-padded jacket was already soaked through, the water dragging heavily on her thin, bony shoulders. She was only 5 years old. Her hands were covered in frostbite, and the festering areas, soaked in rainwater, turned a ghastly white. But she held tightly to the opening of the snakeskin bag, not daring to let go for a moment. Because inside the bag was her mother. 3 days ago, my stomach cancer flared up, and I died in excruciating pain in that 5-square-meter basement. When I died, only Pippa was by my side. She didn't understand what death meant. She only knew that Mommy was asleep, that no matter how she called, she wouldn't wake up, and that she was getting colder and colder. Daddy. Daddy, save me. Pippa knelt in front of the magnificent revolving doors of the Julian Corporation, knocking her forehead against the marble steps again and again. Blood ran down her dirty little face, flowed into her eyes, and stung her so that she couldn't open them. The security guards had already been instructed not to let her in at all, and disgustedly drove her away with sticks. "Get out! Get out! Mister." Julian said he doesn't want to see you scammers. Pippa was pushed, stumbled, and fell into the puddle. She scrambled to her feet and pulled out a cell phone with a spiderweb cracked screen from her arms. She had picked it up from the trash. It only had one nearly expired card. It was her only hope. The phone connected. "Hello." Hearing this voice, my floating soul trembled violently. Julian, the man who once promised to love me for a lifetime. His voice now as cold as if he were talking to a stranger. The background was noisy, with the sound of clinking glasses and a woman's charming laughter. "Julian, who is it? In this rainy weather, don't tell me it's that lingering ex-wife." It was Cora, the woman who forged evidence of my elopement, cut off my life-saving money, and drove me to a dead end. Hearing her father's voice, Pippa seemed to have grasped the life-saving straw, crying so hard that she couldn't catch her breath. "Daddy, it's Pippa. Mommy is sleeping in the bag, she's so cold. Pippa is so scared." "Daddy, Pippa doesn't want money. Pippa just begs you to open the door for Mommy. It's raining so hard outside, Mommy will get wet." The child's childish voice was torn to pieces by the wind and rain. I floated above her head, desperately trying to cover her mouth, trying to hold her trembling body. "Pippa, don't beg him. Don't beg this beast. Mommy is not cold. Mommy is not cold at all. Let's go." But my hands passed through her body again and again, grasping nothing but emptiness. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. Then came Julian's extremely sarcastic sneer, and he had turned on the speakerphone. "Everyone, listen to this. This is what you call professional." His voice came through the phone speaker, with condescending mockery. To force me to show up, she even made up the story of her mother being in a bag? Serafina's screenwriting skills are wasted if she doesn't go to Hollywood. A burst of laughter came from around him. "Mr. Julian, this ex-wife is doing everything she can to remarry you. Using a dead person to cause trouble, aren't you afraid of bad luck?" Cora's sweet, greasy voice stabbed like needles. "Oh dear, isn't your sister left with no choice? After all, she has no way to live without you. But this child has been corrupted too, with her mouth full of lies." Pippa was stunned. She didn't understand the sarcasm. She only heard that her father didn't believe her. "Daddy, I'm not lying. Mommy is really in the bag. She held up the phone, crying her heart out. Mommy isn't moving. Mommy really isn't moving. Enough. Julian's patience seemed to have run out. His voice suddenly turned sharp. Tell Serafina hiding behind you, don't waste your efforts. I would rather throw money into the water to hear it splash than give her a single cent. Tell her to take you, this bastard child, and get as far away from me as possible. The phone was ruthlessly hung up. Pippa stared blankly at the phone, listening to the dial tone. Rainwater flowed down her hair into her neck, and she shivered so much her teeth chattered. Mommy. She lowered her head, her small face pressed against the rough snakeskin bag, tears falling like large beads. Daddy won't come. Daddy doesn't want us anymore. Julian, you can hate me, you can humiliate me, but Pippa is your own daughter. How can you treat her like this? How can you say she is a bastard? I wish I could transform into a vengeful ghost and rush into that warm office to bite through his throat. But I can't. I can only watch helplessly as my daughter, in despair, drags that heavy bag, struggling to move towards the underpass of the overpass. Just then, two glaring headlights suddenly cut through the rain. A black Maybach, like a beast, suddenly stopped at the roadside. The door opened, and a bodyguard held up a huge black umbrella. Julian, in a tailored suit and shiny leather shoes, stepped into the puddle, his brow furrowed. He was also holding Cora, who was draped in white fur, in his arms. The two of them, so glamorous, were completely out of place in this dirty, muddy, rainy night. Pippa was huddled under the pier, and when she saw that familiar figure, her dim eyes instantly lit up. Daddy, Daddy, you came? She excitedly tried to stand up, but her legs were already numb, and with a thump, she fell back into the mud. Ignoring the pain, she scrambled to hug Julian's leg, but Julian, as if seeing something dirty, subconsciously took a step back and even kicked away her outstretched little hand. Get away. He coldly spat out 2 words. Pippa froze, looking at him in confusion. Daddy. Save Mommy. Where is Serafina? Julian looked around, his eyes sinister. Where are you hiding? Letting you act out this sob story. Hiding in the shadows waiting for me to soften, right? He simply didn't believe there was anyone in that snakeskin bag. In his eyes, I must be hiding in some corner, watching him and Cora, waiting for the opportunity to rush out and make a scene, or demand exorbitant alimony. Mommy is here. Pippa pointed at the snakeskin bag, cautiously saying, Mommy is sleeping in the bag. Still lying. Julian suddenly flew into a rage, strode forward, and kicked the snakeskin bag hard. A dull thud. That was the sound of a foot kicking a urn. My soul let out a silent scream. Don't hit Mommy. Pippa rushed over like crazy, using her small body to protect the bag, screaming shrilly, Don't kick Mommy. Mommy will be in pain. Mommy is already in so much pain. Cora covered her nose, shrinking into Julian's arms with a look of disgust. Julian, this bag smells so bad, it looks like it's full of garbage. Serafina is really something. How can she let a child play with garbage? This sentence completely ignited Julian's anger. He grabbed Pippa by the back of her collar, lifting her into the air like a little chick. Look at the way you are. Julian stared at Pippa's face, so dirty her features were unrecognizable, his eyes filled with disgust. Lying through your teeth, covered in filth. How are you anything like a Julian? You're just like your grandmother. Pippa was being strangled, unable to breathe, her little face turning a liverish purple, her limbs flailing uselessly in the air. Elle. Let go. Julian. Let her go. She's your flesh and blood. I screamed from the side, desperately pounding on his arm, but it was all in vain. Julian released his grip, and threw Pippa hard onto the ground. Since Serafina won't come out, I'll force her out. He pointed to the snakeskin bag, and ordered the bodyguard behind him. Tear that trash bag open for me. I want to see if there's a living, breathing person inside, or just a pile of junk. The bodyguard, following orders, pulled a folding knife from his pocket. The gleaming blade glinted coldly under the streetlights. When Pippa saw the knife, her pupils contracted sharply. That was her mother's last home. If the bag was destroyed, her mother would truly have nowhere to go. No. Please don't. Pippa sprang up from the ground, with strength she didn't know she possessed, and charged headfirst into the bodyguard holding the knife. The bodyguard was a big, strong man, and the collision only made him stagger slightly. He then impatiently slapped her. The sharp sound of the slap echoed especially harshly in the rainy night. Pippa spun around from the force of the blow, and blood instantly trickled from the corner of her mouth. But she didn't seem to feel the pain, clinging tightly to the bodyguard's leg, opening her mouth and biting down hard. It was a bite fueled by all her hatred. The bodyguard screamed in pain. Is this little brat a dog? He raised his foot and kicked Pippa hard in the stomach. Pippa's small body flew through the air like a broken doll, crashing into the rough concrete pillar behind her, then sliding down softly. A large mouthful of blood spurted from her mouth, staining the rain-soaked ground beneath her red. Pippa. I knelt beside her, watching her small body convulse violently, my heart aching as if it was about to explode. Kill me. God, please kill me. Why are you tormenting my child? Julian saw this scene, his brow only furrowing slightly. But only for a moment. Cora fanned the flames from the sidelines. Good heavens, this child bites people like a mad dog. Julian, it seems Serafina has been inciting her to hate us. If we bring a child like this back to the Julian family, she'll definitely be a menace in the future. In that case, let's not bring her back. He disgustedly wiped the fingers that had touched Pippa. Send her to an orphanage. As for this trash bag. He glanced coldly at the mud-covered snakeskin bag. It's disgusting just looking at it. Throw it into the river. No. Pippa lay on the ground, still spitting out blood and froth. She wanted to get up, but she couldn't move anymore. She could only watch helplessly as the bodyguard dragged the heavy bag towards the railing by the river. A long, muddy trail was dragged across the ground. That was my ashes. Julian, are you going to scatter my bones to the winds? Give me back my mother. Pippa's fingers dug into the mud, her fingernails torn, bleeding. She used the last of her strength to let out a desperate cry. Mom! Just as the bodyguard raised his hand, ready to throw the snakeskin bag into the turbulent river water. Stop! A red sports car screeched to a halt, almost hitting Julian. The car door opened, and Julian's younger sister, Vivian, didn't even take an umbrella. She rushed out like a madwoman, pushed the bodyguard away, and hugged the snakeskin bag. Brother! Have you gone crazy? That's sister-in-law. Vivian was soaked to the bone, and shouted at Julian. Julian's face was gloomy. Vivian, are you going crazy with that woman? If Serafina is in that bag, I'll drink this river dry. Whether she is or not, wouldn't you know if you opened it and looked? Vivian cried and shouted. You haven't been able to find your sister-in-law for 3 years because Cora cut off all her contacts. Sister-in-law is sick, she's really sick. Julian paused, subconsciously looking at Cora. Cora's face was pale, but she tried to remain calm. Julian, Vivian must have been tricked. Bring it here. Julian interrupted her suddenly, his voice trembling. He strode towards Vivian, reaching out to grab the snakeskin bag. As they wrestled, the cheap, flimsy snakeskin bag, unable to bear the strain, finally gave way with a rip, completely tearing open. There was no living person suddenly jumping out as Julian had expected. No ransom note or gold bars either. A cheap, dark red plastic box rolled out from the opening. The box rolled a few times on the ground, finally stopping beside Julian's priceless handmade leather shoes. Everyone fell silent. Only the rain continued to batter everything relentlessly. On the box was a black and white 1-inch photo. The woman in the photo was gentle and smiling, exactly how Julian had once loved her. It was my obituary photo. Along with the urn, a crumpled piece of paper, soaked with rain, also fell out. A gust of wind blew the paper, sticking it right to Julian's foot. Julian seemed frozen in place, his whole body stiff. He lowered his head, his eyes fixed on the paper on his instep. In the pale light of the car headlights, the writing, though blurred, still pierced his retinas like sharp knives. Death medical certificate. Deceased name, Serafina. Cause of death, late-stage stomach cancer, multiple organ failure. Time of death, September 15, 2025, 3 days ago. His pupils dilated violently, his breath completely ceasing at that moment. No. This is impossible. Julian staggered back half a step, as if struck by lightning. He wanted to say that this was another new trick that woman had concocted for money, but when his gaze landed on the lonely red plastic box rolling in the mud, thump! His knees crashed heavily onto the hard concrete ground. He reached out to grab the dark red box that had rolled in the mud. When his fingertips touched the cold, rough surface of the box, the realistic sensation struck him like an electric shock. No. I don't believe it. Julian's voice was broken, his throat filled with thorny gravel. He tried to wipe the mud off the box with the sleeve of his expensive haute couture suit, but the rain was too heavy, as if the sky had a hole in it. The mud mixed with the rain. The more he wiped, the dirtier it got, the more desolate and chilling it seemed. Serafina, come out. Stop playing around. Aren't you good at running? Aren't you the most stubborn? Come out. As long as you come out, I'll forgive you for everything that happened before. I'll give you however much money you want. Serafina, come out. No one answered him. Besides the raging wind and rain, there was only a deathly silence. I floated in front of him, looking down at this once invincible man, watching him cry bitterly, holding my urn, like a child abandoned by the whole world. Even as a ghost, watching him in such agony, I felt only a kind of vindictive pleasure in my heart, an endless desolation. Julian, your day has come. Cora watched this scene, a flicker of panic in her eyes, quickly replaced by venomous jealousy. She walked forward on her high heels, grabbed Julian's arm, her voice sharp and shrill. Julian, don't be fooled by this bitch. Serafina is the kind of woman who would do anything for money. How could she die so easily? This must be another one of her ploys, probably hiding in some corner laughing, trying to trick you into feeling sorry for her, and giving her a share of the inheritance. Cora's words were like salt, cruelly sprinkled on Julian's bloodied heart. Shut up. Julian suddenly turned around, his eyes fierce as if he wanted to devour her. Give me back my mommy. Pippa, who had been slumped on the ground, saw Julian holding onto the box and, drawing on some unknown strength, suddenly rushed forward. Like a wounded little beast, she opened her mouth and bit down hard on the back of Julian's hand. The bite was deep, filled with boundless hatred. Blood instantly gushed out, dripping onto the dirty urn, a piercing red. Give me back my mommy. You're a bad person. You're a murderer. Pippa let go, her mouth full of blood, crying her heart out, a despair that would move anyone to tears. Mommy was in so much pain. Wah. Mommy was rolling around on the ground in pain, biting her tongue until it bled. She was calling your name, calling it over and over again. But you didn't come. She was throwing up blood, so much blood. Just like I am now. Pippa cried and vomited up a mouthful of bloody froth, staining the front of her clothes red. You were celebrating that bad auntie's birthday, you were laughing. But mommy was dying. You owe me my mommy. You owe me my mommy. Innocent words, each one stabbing at the heart. Every sentence was like a rusty, dull knife, thrusting deep into Julian's heart, then twisted forcefully. Immense panic and remorse instantly engulfed him, making it almost impossible to breathe. 3 days ago. The extravagant night he remembered, the sky full of fireworks, Cora's shy smile. It turned out that at that time, his wife was huddled in a dark and damp basement, desperately taking her last breath amidst the agonizing pain, second by second. Julian suddenly clutched his chest, emitting a mournful cry like a dying beast. Seeing that things were going badly, Cora's eyes flashed with malice as she pointed at Pippa and screamed, "That little bastard is a liar too. She must have been taught by that bitch Serafina. She dares to pronounce such a curse as her own mother's death, just to cheat people out of money, truly a thing born without a mother's upbringing. I bet that urn is filled with flour. A lowlife like Serafina is only fit to wallow in the mud. How could she deserve such a clean death?" Slap. An extremely crisp sound of a slap echoed through the rainy night, cutting off all the vicious words. Julian raised his hand and slapped Cora across the face. Cora was sent flying, crashing heavily into the puddle. One side of her face was swollen, blood flowing from the corner of her mouth. "Get out!" Julian held the urn, his eyes like those of a demon crawling out of hell, staring at her intently. "Dare to say another word about her and I'll kill you." Julian, like a madman, rushed into the hospital with Pippa and my urn. Even though I had become ashes, he still refused to believe it. He wanted the doctor to provide a resuscitation plan, as if I could come back to life as long as the doctor nodded. In the emergency room, the attending physician on duty was called in overnight. When he saw the dirty urn in Julian's arms, and then looked at Pippa, who was on the verge of death on the stretcher, the doctor was stunned. Then, when he saw the name on the urn, his face suddenly changed. Serafina? The doctor looked sharply at Julian, his eyes not filled with fear, but with towering rage. Are you her busy husband? Julian was soaked to the bone, a wretched sight, trembling as he nodded, humbled to the dust. Save her, please save her. Save my ass, the usually refined doctor cursed, slamming a thick medical record on Julian's face. The papers flew, resembling the funeral money scattered in the air that day. She's been dead for 3 days and you come to save her? Where were you before? The doctor trembled with anger, pointing a finger at Julian's nose and yelling. Do you know what she's been through these past 3 years? Stage 4 stomach cancer. Stage 4. The pain could make a person faint. Even morphine wouldn't work. I begged her countless times to be hospitalized, but she said she had no money. She said she needed to save her money to buy food for her daughter, to pay for her daughter's tuition. Even at the end, when she was in so much pain she bit her lips raw, I told her to call you. Do you know what she said? Julian knelt on the ground, picking up the medical record, his hands shaking so badly he couldn't hold it. His eyes were red-rimmed. Said what? The doctor took a deep breath, his own eyes also red, and repeated the cruel truth through gritted teeth. She said, don't call, he's busy, he'll think I'm annoying. She said, Doctor, after I die, can you help me donate my corneas? I heard they can be exchanged for some money. I want to leave some money for Pippa. I don't want her to suffer like I did. But, the doctor choked up, his voice filled with endless regret. Because the cancer cells had spread throughout her body, her corneas were also damaged, so she couldn't donate them. Before she died, she kept holding my hand and crying, saying she was sorry to Pippa, that she couldn't leave her anything. Julian was struck as if by lightning, his whole body stiff as stone. He trembled as he opened the medical record, inside which was a letter that hadn't been mailed. The letter was crumpled and stained with dried blood, a shocking sight. It was my handwriting, crooked and difficult to read due to the pain. Julian, I'm dying. I don't hate you really. Loving you was the bravest thing I've ever done. But if there's a next life, I don't want to love again, it hurts too much. Please, for the sake of our marriage, be kind to Pippa. Julian could no longer bear it, and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the clean, white tile floor. It was due to extreme anger and grief. Serafina. You're so cruel. He clutched his chest, hugging the letter, curled up on the ground, crying like a child abandoned by the whole world. How can you not hate me? How can you not hate me? Get up and hit me. Scold me. Please say something. I floated above his head, watching this man suffer because of me. How much I once longed for this tear of his, but now that I saw it, I only felt irony. Julian, you see, people are always like this. They take what they have for granted, only realizing its preciousness after losing it. Too late. The revelation of the truth came faster and more tragically than I had imagined. When Julian woke up in the hospital, he was a changed man. He no longer roared like a madman, nor did he cry at the air. He became unusually quiet. Only in the depths of his bloodshot eyes did a storm brewing that would destroy everything. He used all the connections and power that the Julian family had accumulated over the centuries to thoroughly investigate every event of that year. The results were shocking. It turned out that the so-called elopement letter was written by someone Cora hired to imitate my handwriting. The so-called lover was an actor Cora paid. What broke him down the most was that when I was first diagnosed with cancer, I actually had a chance for surgery. I borrowed money everywhere, even sold the only jade bracelet my grandmother left me, and finally managed to scrape together enough for the surgery. But on the way to the hospital, I was robbed by a group of thugs. It wasn't an ordinary robbery. Julian found out that the thugs were led by Cora's distant cousin. Cora gave them money to teach Serafina a lesson, take the money, and let her wait to die. That night, after learning all of this, Julian sat in his study and laughed. The laughter was shrill and manic, chilling to the bone. The next day, Cora was brought before Julian. She still wanted to argue, to beg for mercy based on their past affection. Julian merely looked at her with a gaze colder than that of a corpse. "Send her to that place," he said, waving his hand lightly. Upon hearing these words, Cora instantly collapsed to the ground in terror, losing control of her bowels. That place was a mental asylum secretly funded by Julian's family, filled with genuine lunatics and deranged serial killers. "No, Julian, you can't do this to me. I love you. I did it all for love of you." Julian walked over, squatted down, and gently wiped the tears from her face with a handkerchief, his tone terrifyingly gentle. "Love. You dare utter that word? Since you enjoy tormenting people so much, go there and enjoy it. I've already given instructions for them to give you the highest level of care. To live in torment and be unable to die is the best reward for you." Cora was dragged away, her screams echoing for a long time in the hallway. After dealing with Cora, Julian did not feel relieved. He locked himself in the villa where we used to live. He forbade anyone to clean, wanting the rooms to remain as they were when I left. He moved into the dark, damp basement, the place where I had lived for 3 years before I died. He slept on the hard bed I had slept on, ate the stale bread I used to eat, and drank the murky tap water. Each time he had stomach cramps from it, he would show a morbidly satisfied smile. "Serafina." He cradled my ashes in the darkness, stroking them repeatedly. "Did you hurt this much back then? I'm sorry. I'll come and hurt with you." He was using this almost self-abusive method to slowly and endlessly torture himself. 5 years later, a desolate mountain in the western suburbs was covered in golden sunflowers. They were my favorite flower when I was alive. Julian bought the entire mountain and planted this sea of flowers by hand. A hunched man with snow-white hair was slowly walking up the stone steps, holding the hand of a 10-year-old girl. This was Julian, who was only 35 years old. In these 5 years, he had cried his eyes out after that rainstorm and refused proper treatment. Now his retinas were severely detached, his eyes cloudy, almost blind. But he didn't need eyes. He had walked this road to my tombstone countless times in his heart. Pippa had grown taller, and her features were increasingly like mine. In these 5 years, she had watched Julian torment himself until he was barely recognizable as a human being, although she still refused to call him Dad. The hatred in her eyes had been diluted somewhat by time. "We're here." Pippa stopped and placed a bouquet of dewy sunflowers in front of the tombstone. Julian fumbled, knelt down, and his fingers trembled as he stroked my photo on the tombstone. "Serafina, it's been 5 years. His voice was old and hoarse. "I've come to see you. The sunflowers are blooming beautifully today. I think you would like it." The wind blew through the sea of flowers, making a rustling sound. Julian leaned against the tombstone. "Serafina, my eyes are almost blind. When I'm completely blind, will I be able to get closer to you? Could you come see me in my dreams? Just once?" In these 5 years, I had never appeared in his dreams. This was his greatest punishment. Pippa looked at her father, who looked like a 60-year-old man, and the tears in the corners of his eyes, and finally softened. She sighed softly and said the first gentle words in 5 years. "Last night, I dreamt of Mom." Julian looked up, and an astonishing light shone in his cloudy eyes. He eagerly grabbed Pippa's hand. "Really? What did Mom say? Is she doing well?" Pippa looked at my gentle smiling face on the tombstone and told a gentle lie. "Mom said she forgives you. She said she was going to be reborn, and told you to stop torturing yourself. She said to live well, and to see all the flowers bloom and fall in this world for her." Actually, I had said nothing. I should have dissipated long ago, only lingering until now because of this last bit of obsession. Hearing these words, Julian was stunned. After a long time, he fell to the ground, wailing. It was a cry of relief, but also a cry of despair. Thank you, Serafina. Thank you for forgiving me." He sat in front of my tombstone for a day and a night, until the dawn broke. Later, Julian resigned from all positions in the group, and built a simple wooden cabin next to my tombstone. He said he wasn't going anywhere. He wanted to spend the rest of his life guarding my grave here, listening to the wind, watching the flowers and thinking of me. I watched him sitting in the rocking chair in front of the wooden cabin, still holding that old photograph in his arms, facing the mountain of sunflowers, revealing a long-lost, peaceful smile. The wind rose, and my body began to turn transparent, transforming into countless golden specks of light, flying towards that warm sea of flowers. Goodbye, Julian. May you atone for your sins in remembrance for the rest of your life. May we never meet again in the next life.